as I always asked. Now, what have I got today in today's program? Brother Mbandaka is back here today, and it's again something about Africa that I felt we need. There was some kind of unfinished business that Brother Mbandaka and I had to talk about that we didn't talk about in the last programs when you were here. So I do hope that we'll cover most of that, and the questions are going to be answered as I was being asked every now and then. So he has motivated so many young Africans, and he has not young, even elder Africans. And there is a saying that when a child washes his hands, he eats with the elders. That is from Ghana, from Nigeria, and even from Uganda. Now, we've washed our hands, we're going to eat with the elder. And that is very interesting. Now, this spiritual leaders of Africa, we didn't cover this much last time. They are not mainly listened to. The question is why? Because they bring out what sometimes we don't want to hear. But most of their knowledge, the wise knowledge, comes out. And that's what we want to hear. We who are at this older. But why do other people don't want to listen to it? I don't know whether you have an answer to that.
Tonight we're at it.
Yeah,
well, first of all, let me bring greetings to you, my brother.
Yeah, okay.
And to Omega TV, and to all our listeners, in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, our Kebula and Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. And just to say what an honor and a blessing it is to be here. And I do want to just steal a moment to thank all of your listeners who bother to take the time to send an email or to drop a text or to give you a call even. To express their appreciation for the last program that we did. That is very reassuring because we work for the empowerment of our people, the enlightenment of our people, and ultimately the total liberation of our people. And if our people are inspired and informed by what we have to offer, then it's rewarding and fulfilling.
That's very kind of you. That's very kind. You've heard it from the man himself. So and then if there is anything else next time, just let me know and we'll reach you. Okay.
So your question is about why our people are not listening to the spiritual leaders of Africa, or don't want to listen to the spiritual leaders of Africa. I don't think it's a case of our people not wanting to listen. I think it's more of a case, there must be some who are listening. This is where I got my knowledge from. I got my knowledge from Africans from the motherland and Africans from the diaspora who were reclaiming their culture, reclaiming their spiritual traditions, and who were representing and teaching these traditions in meetings and study groups and so on that I benefited from. And there were others who were there who were listening, some from the motherland and some from the diaspora. So it's not that our people, I don't think it's that our people don't want to listen, but those who may appear not to want to listen are those who are miseducated. See, we have to understand the history of Africa and the history of Africans, African people, what we have been through over the last several hundred years. One word that we use for it is a Kiswahili word, which I know you'll be familiar with, is the word Maafa. Maafa, which means great destruction, colossal destruction. And Africa and Africans have been through a colossal destruction over the last several hundred years. 500 years under the Europeans, 1400 years under the Arabs. And we can even take it back to many more years before the Arabs. But the major onslaught on Africa and Africans in the last 1,500 years have come from the Arabs over the last 1,400 years and the Europeans over the last 500 years. So, and that there are 6 stages that we could identify of the Ma'afa, the colossal destruction of African humanity, of the African continent, the rape, the pillage, the exploitation of Africa and Africans, the degradation of Africa and Africans, can be understood through these 6 stages: the invasion of Africa, the conquest of Africans and the African continent, the enslavement of Africans, the colonization of Africa and Africans, the neo-colonization, or what we call neo-colonialism. The great Osajifo, Kwame Nkrumah, talked about neo-colonialism, the new form, the new brand of colonialism. And this, the most updated stage, which is globalization, and globalization is hitting the African continent.
Quite hard.
It is having a volcanic effect on the African continent. But we have been misinformed, we have been miseducated. We go through educational systems that give us information, it's still misinformation, about the colonizers and their culture and their history from their Eurocentric perspective, but little or no knowledge about our own historical experience, our own culture as African people. And we have been dissuaded from valuing that which is ours. We believe that to be intelligent, we must sound like Europeans, we must speak their language.
You can change color if you can.
Bleach our skins in order to look beautiful. The more we look like them, the more beautiful we are. So we have been conditioned not to see beauty in blackness, beauty in the texture of our hair, or the broadness of our nose, or the thickness of our lips. We have been conditioned not to see beauty in that context, and so it's everything, my brother. It's every aspect of African being that has been invaded, that has been ravaged. And it's all of that we need to
now. The question is
again. Tenamari.
Over the years, this is something, as you mentioned, the historical point of view. Over the years, say we are talking about 800 to 900 years of what we've been through, and this is not something that is probably going to go away in a century. It will something that will take years and years to go with. That's why when I look at it, I'm looking at the spiritual leaders, and I'm saying, look, no matter how much education you're going to give certain people, when it's still, the process is still going on, there has to be a way in which we must say, let's take this back. Let's take this back. How do we take this back? First and foremost, though, by listening to what people like you are saying. Secondly, by looking at the way we educate our children, because I've seen Steve Harper, one of these American presenters, who went to Ghana recently, and he did a program about that. And he cried when he went to Amina Castle and, over what happened during those years of slavery. And then he went back. He's now doing a very good job in a sense that, in America, there's so many African Americans who only seen films like the Kunta Kinte, the Roots, and other films. That's the only association they associate with that. I said, well, that's in the past, we're moving on. But how do we re-educate even our own children, for example? Because they in turn will educate their children. For us to get this thing out of the, it has to go through education system. But how do we bring it to the leaders that this thing has to be taught in schools? It's better than engineers, it's better than this or that. Because at the end of the day, okay, the people are educated to get jobs. But they also need to have a mind where they look back and they say, yeah, but this is who I am. I mean, starting with the dressing, the example. It classifies who you are, Even if a white man dresses like you, will never be you. You see my point? Absolutely. So how do we bring this into families and bring it back to our people?
The great and most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, always said, unite, organize now, or perish. Unite, organize now or perish. He calls on us as Africans to unite, organize now or perish. He impresses upon us the importance of seeing ourselves not just as black people, people of black skin. That's part of the aesthetic glory with which the Creator created us. We have to rediscover the beauty, the profound beauty of blackness. But our blackness alone doesn't tell the full story. No, it is our Africanness. We are black because we are African. And so it's the Africanness is the substance of our beings. Yes? And it is our African DNA that gives us this beautiful blackness. In all its glory. So we have to start to learn to love ourselves. And to love ourselves, we have to first know ourselves.
That's very important. That's very important.
And then we have to now start to unite around the things that we know about ourselves, the things that we love about ourselves. We have to unite and we have to organize now around the things that we know about ourselves, the things that we love about ourselves. And if we know anything, if we need to know anything about ourselves, it is our origin, our roots, our history, how we come to be where we are and as we are. Yes? And we will realize, you know, one of our great historians, Baba by the name of Ivan van Sertima. Ivan van Sertima. From Guyana. In the Caribbean. Guyana is on the outskirts of South America, but it's politically and culturally part of the Caribbean.
Geographically next to South America.
It's in South America. It's on the South American continent. And he said few people understand the impact of the invasion and the conquest, the enslavement of Africa and African people. Few people understand the devastation
of that impact
that Africa and African people have gone through over the last 500 years. And this is a man of colossal intellect who has done tremendous. I mean, you've paid me some nice compliments, my brother, but to know, if you paid me those wonderful comments, if you start to study the works of Ivan van Sertima, and the massive areas of research that he has done into the history of Africa and its people, and what he has unearthed. When he impresses the importance of understanding the devastation that has been done, then when we know this, we know, one, that we have an enemy that is vicious, that is dangerous, that we need to know, two, that we are in a serious crisis as a people, and that only we as African people can liberate ourselves. Only we can have the will, the determination, and the know-how to liberate ourselves. We are indeed our own liberator. Papa Garvey told us this. We are our own liberators. So we have to organize ourselves around these principles. There's work that we have to do. And it cannot just be about discussing the problem.
No. Action has to take place.
It must be about organized action for liberation.
Action has to be there.
It has to be there. And it must be organized action on every aspect of our lives. It's got to be cultural, it's got to be spiritual, it has to be political, it has to be economic, it has to be social, it has to be scientific, it has to be technological, it has to be on every single level of human life. And we must adopt the Garveyite principle. Yes?
Well, that's very important, but the thing is it goes back to education again, because it's not being taught in schools, and this is where the leaders come in. Because from my research anyway, and I discovered this in the sense that when you try your level best to even talk to some of the leaders and say, look, you know that we could teach this. One of them even asked me, so what benefit is that? I said, hang on a minute.
It's not surprising.
If you don't know the history of where you're coming from, because that's the saying, then where are you going? You need to know where you come from. Then you probably know better where you're going. You know, that's very important. But because that is sort of suppressed, and it's what is happening in America, and it's even happening here, in a sense that the schools are teaching the British history. Yeah, they'll teach you about Shakespeare. You do novels of Shakespeare in literature. You do, you know. But you're not doing.
That's called a Eurocentric education.
You're not doing something on Kwame Nkrumah. You're not doing something on Apollo Bote or any of these other leaders and the historical background. And it's funny because I discovered one of the universities here actually is teaching something about Idi Amin. You know, and I said, "You're teaching about Idi Amin, but you're not teaching about Nkrumah." Why the comparison to me was, he was a dictator, he was doing this, and, you know. So there is this West Indian guy as well, Papa Doc or something. There's something about him as well, you know. And you're looking
from Haiti.
From Haiti, yeah. You're looking at people who didn't really contribute that much to our...
Because the plan, the program, and the intention there is to demonize Africa and the African continent. So the people who are perceived in the minds of Europeans to be dictators are the ones that they flag up, you know, as being the symbol of the nature of Africanness, if you will. You know. And it's dangerous. I want to say,
it is very dangerous.
I want to say, well, that's what you call a Eurocentric education, a Eurocentric education, and a Eurocentric form of socialization as well. Understanding that education is largely about socialization. But you know, there is a saying: they who describe the circumference of your learning activity will determine the diameter of your thinking.
Of course,
They who describe the circumference, you know, there's some geometry here. They who describe the circumference of your learning activity will determine the diameter of your thinking. Once you describe a circle, the circumference of a circle, then you define the length of the diameter. A diameter of a circle cannot exceed the circumference. And so it is, my brother, that those who are so-called educators, those who dictate how Africans should be educated, are the ones who determine how we think. So it's not surprising that someone who might be called a leader on the African continent was at a Eurocentric education would say to you that learning about Kwame Nkrumah is not important. Why is that important? No. It is because he's been miseducated.
Now,
I
also have Tendai. I have to come back to you in a sense that this knowledge and what you've gone through and what you've seen on the African continent, in areas where you've been, and what you've learned over the years. Does this come back from your youth, when a father, a mother, a brother, or did this think right from the beginning, because our influences are always come through people, you know?
Your life experience. Children live what they learn, and they learn what they live.
Exactly. I was saying the same thing about the rappers in America and what's going on, because of what they sing, the music, what they've seen, you know, the Tupacs and so on. The music of the ghetto is something that they see, and that's what they're singing about it. Now, similarly, is this something you've been seeing all your childhood? You've seen a father, you've seen, you know, someone asked me these questions, actually, asked you, said, you must have had a very good father who came up and say, hey, look, no matter what happened, you're an African. The way the African fathers do, maybe you even got some beatings just to to make sure that you have the knowledge in your head. Because when they want us to learn certain things, they just said, "What did I just say?" And then you have to have that in your mind that, listen, this is what my dad wants me to do, and my dad has taught me this, and I can remember, this a long time ago, my father would always want to teach me certain things. When a man teaches another man, it's like, you know. So does that come from that sort of angle, or do you just went through life and then suddenly you discovered yourself?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked me that question.
No, somebody really wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah. You're sending me right back to my childhood. There's certainly much. There's certainly much like I would give my parents credit for.
Yeah.
And it was not so much the explicit teachings.
Okay.
But the subtle messages
that you got.
You know, I mean, just little things like, you know, my father had dashikis. My mother and my father had dashikis from the 60s, you know, the 1960s. There was this wave of black power.
Yeah.
And you know, for one of the symbols of black power with the afro here,
I know,
was the wearing of dashiki.
The James Brown kind of.
Yes, that kind of image. And it wasn't just James Brown. There were other.
There are others, of course.
The
other Black
celebrities
Panther,
that used to wear.
Them, the Black Panthers had all that. Yeah.
And so, just having the shikis that they would wear occasionally, and it used to just have an impact on me. I just loved it as a child. I just loved seeing them in it. And when I was old enough to fit into one of those dashikis, I would just put them on and wear them. And my mother and father stopped wearing them. They were in their drawers, and I used to just take them out and put them on. And I just loved to look in the mirror and see myself in them. And I can't say at that time I had a strong consciousness of my Africanness, or I even related the dashikis
to
consciously
Africa.
To Africa at that stage of my life. Later on, certainly I did when I became older and more aware.
Yeah.
But I must share with you something that I experienced at age 7.
All right.
With my grandmother. I was very, very close to my grandmother, and I think that this experience, this particular event, had such a profound effect upon me. And that was, I think, the catalyst. Not that I was aware of it then, but just looking back on my life and analyzing my life.
Yeah.
I was very close to my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to know about her past and her childhood and growing up. And she talked about her father quite a lot. So we call him Papi.
Yeah.
So I would always ask her questions about Papi and Mama, who is her mother and father. So those are my great-grandparents.
Okay.
But she talked more about Papi than she talked about Mama. So I would ask more questions about Papi, than I would about Mama.
Yeah.
And she told me, and when she talked about Papi, then I wanted to know about Papi's parents. So she told me about Payam, the father of Papi.
Okay.
And Shati, the father of the mother.
Those are the great-great-grandparents.
Those are my great-great-grandparents and my grandmother's grandparents.
Yeah.
And so when she told me about them, then I wanted to know about their parents.
You're taking her further and further down.
I was 7 years old now.
Yeah.
When we got to the part where she told me about Payam, her grandfather, which is my great-grandfather, whose name I have claimed as part of reclaiming my African names.
Yeah.
And she said to me that his father was born in slavery. And he could have been born in slavery, but his father was born in slavery. Yeah. And that my grandmother's last name was Walker. Yeah. She told me that before he became Walker, he was Bowen. Yeah. His name was Bowen because he was owned by a white man.
Okay.
Yeah. A slave owner named Bowen. So he had
to take that slave name.
He had to take the slave master's name.
Yeah.
And then he was sold from that slave master to another slave master named Walker. And his name was therefore changed to Walker.
Yeah.
And that's how her family.
The generation
That family
got
lineage,
the
my
name,
grandmother's lineage got the name Walker. Well, even at age 7, that had a profound impact on me.
Yeah.
It didn't sound right.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right. He was owned by another human being.
Yeah.
And he was sold
to another human
being from one human being
to another. Yeah.
It didn't feel right. And so now I became obsessed with this thing called slavery. I wanted to find out more.
Yeah.
But my grandmother didn't tell me anything more about slavery. She just told me little things but she didn't go into any detail.
Yeah.
But that just stayed with me.
Yeah.
And as I was growing up, and I must also give thanks for the Black Power movement, because I grew up in
that generation,
in the Caribbean during the time of the Black Power movement.
Yeah.
I must give thanks and praises for the Rastafari movement.
Yeah.
Because the Rastafari movement was really about reclaiming and reconstituting and restoring African consciousness, African culture, African spiritual traditions. Yeah. And I was growing up in Jamaica at that time, with all of this going on around me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily knowing the seeds that were being planted and being harvested in my mind and in my soul
at the time.
Yeah. But that is where I would say it really started. And one more thing I want to add to the equation. My mother's eldest brother, my Uncle Sid, bless his soul, he passed on in 2003, 16 years now, on the 16th of Mosiah, the 16th of August.
Okay.
He was the one who talked about Africa and Africanness openly and explicitly.
Yeah.
And talked about the beauty of blackness and encouraged us to think black. And to be proud of being black. And I must just quickly share an experience I had with you, a transformative experience for me as a child. My grandmother had pictures up in her bedroom, in her house, not just her bedroom, her bedroom included, of a white man called Jesus Christ. Yes? And of these white images of the so-called royal family of Britain.
Of Britain,
Yes.
Yeah.
King George, and Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, and they were all over the house, all white, all these pictures all around the house. And my uncle was a calm, cool, softly spoken character, and he was my grandmother's eldest son. And there was a beautiful relationship between the two of them. He loved his mother deeply, and she was proud of her firstborn. And so they had this beautiful relationship. And my uncle used to speak to her, used to say to her every now and again, "I don't like them picture in the house." See a pure white people picture in the house. And he would smile with her. And he would say, "It's not good for the picnic them, it's not good for the children." If they have all them white people pictured in the house. You know, glorified white people. And he would say things like, "Jesus no white. Jesus have to be a black man." You know, and things like that. And I'm a child and I'm listening to
to that,
And my uncle said, to cut a long story short, this went on for a long time. Went on for quite a long time. And debates would
of course come in.
And sometimes my grandmother would order my uncle to shut up.
To shut up.
You know, and she can't take no more. And he would give her a lovely smile, and he would go quiet. And until the next time. You know. And then one day he said to my grandmother, so one day when you come home and all them picture will be missing. And that went on for a while. He kept warning her and warning her. And my grandmother was out one day, and she was out like for most of the day. And it's like he knew she wasn't going to be back for a while. My uncle went through the house like a man possessed. And did a clean sweep. Took all of the pictures down. And he didn't just take them down.
He burnt them.
It's like he had a picture to replace each one. And it was pictures of Marcus Garvey, Haile Selassie, Black Jesus, Black Mary and Jesus. And he he went through the whole house and changed all of the picture frames. I will never forget
what a character. Yeah.
the impact
that
had on my mind, the transformation
of that.
Of that.
Yeah.
In that household. It was a different energy.
Yeah.
It was almost as though these pictures were alive. They were powerful. I can feel the energy now. It was a different energy.
Yeah, that came into you.
Far, far more powerful energy. So all of those are the experiences that has helped to shape the foundation for making me the person I am today.
You see, Spike Lee,
I hope your listeners find that interesting.
Listen, yeah, they do. I'm sure they will. Spike Lee did a film called one of the Black American film producers. He did a film called Do the Right Thing, and in one of them, that reminds me that character. There was a guy who went to a restaurant to eat some food. Then he realized that the pictures on the walls were of a different, this boxer, what's his name? The former heavyweight champion, the white guy.
Marciano, was it?
Rocky Marciano, and there were other Italians, because this was more or less an Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
So this guy says, look,
we're the brothers on the wall.
Where's the brothers on the wall?
I remember that.
Where's Muhammad Ali? Where's so and so? This is Harlem. This is, and the whole thing is it was showing that.
And one of the things he was challenging. Challenging the Italian guy about is that it was black people that was coming here buying
That's what
stuff,
he told him.
We
come in here to eat the
spend
food.
our money.
Spend our money here, and the picture on the wall is nothing that shows that this is ours.
Absolutely.
So and I like the way you've done that, but the way that impact had on you, it is quite interesting, because we probably wouldn't have known a lot about Africa from you. But I like this thing to look more at our futures, in a sense that what you learned as a child and what it brings out now, and what others should learn from that. Because the biggest problem we have, like I said about the leaders, and like I said in today's program, I looked more or less at the cultures. The Nigerians have tried so hard, even though they might not, to make sure that their dress code. Because I tried this even back home in Uganda, and I said, look, we need to have some kind of a dress code that clarifies that, listen, I'm an African. The dress code, first of all, has to send a message.
Absolutely.
Then from there, the messages have to go through. But what most of us Africans do is that we wear the dresses, our dress code, on ceremonies. We have clothes that are coming in for ceremonies when we are doing this or that or that. But West Africa has a difference, Ghana, Nigeria. Whether it's on a rainy day or something like that, you're still going to find that the dress code is the same. It is an African. It's an African lady. They have to wear that. They have to do that. Now, maybe that's the starting point for us to start learning more. Our children will learn more on that than putting on suits and ties and
Absolutely.
This has an impact. But how do we bring that to our people? Or through the education structure, through the universities, and where someone can go around and say, listen, this message needs to go across. We need to dress like this. We can dress like that when we go to work in suits and so on. But when we are home, the dress code becomes part of that example to our children. And then from there, other things start following. How do we do that? How do we bring that into schools?
Well, you remember when I was here last time,
Yeah.
I evoked the wisdom of our ancestors
Yeah.
and the profound saying, to count sand, you start from where you stand.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that, what we face as African people is, is a monumental task to really heal ourselves and to correct history.
Yeah.
It's a monumental task.
Yes, it is. It is.
And it can be overwhelming if we just look at the full picture of what faces us. If we can see the full picture, that is.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is, though we must have a sense of the colossus that faces us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We must begin to look at small tasks that we can undertake.
So something starts small.
Something, yeah, you have to. This is what the saying means. To count sand, you start from where you stand. You start from the grain at your feet.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Not with the grain at the pinnacle
of
the mountain of sand.
No, you can't.
Start with the grain at your feet.
At the bottom,
Don't concern yourself with the billions of grains. Concern yourself with that grain at your feet. Those grains at your feet. You
where you're standing.
Yes, absolutely. And then inspire others as you go along to help you with the count.
Okay.
Yeah? As they go along, you inspire others to come and help you with the count. And they'll do the same thing. They count sand from where they stand.
Yeah.
They start counting from the feet.
To go upwards.
Yes. And so if there's 10 of us, each time we pick up 1 grain, it's 10 grains. If there's 100 of us, each time we pick up 1 grain, it's 100 grains.
Yeah.
If there's 1,000 of us, each time we pick up 1 grain, it's 1,000 grains.
Yeah.
If it's 1,000,000 of us, each time we pick up 1 grain, it's 1,000,000 grain.
Yeah.
You will
I understand.
We have to take it in stages.
Yeah.
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 The other thing is that, so I would want to suggest that the starting point is not the universities.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our homes.
Yeah.
That's the starting point.
Yeah.
It's our homes. It's our communities. That's where we have to begin to inspire ourselves and inspire each other. So we start to make the transformation in our personal lives. And then for every transformation that we make, we create a potential for a teachable moment.
Okay.
So for instance, I'm dressing in traditional garments.
Yeah.
Somebody may say to me, well, why are you wearing African garments?
Yeah.
I've created a teachable moment there.
Yeah.
Because they're asking the questions.
Yeah.
I'm not imposing my thoughts or my will upon them.
No.
They've seen something in me that interests them, so they've come and asked a question.
Yeah.
Your name is Mandla Nkosi Vuyo Oguntoki Payam Mbandaka. That's my full name.
Could you repeat that? I need to get that in my head.
Mandla Nkosi
Vuyo
Payam. Sorry, Mandla Nkosi Vuyo Oguntoki.
Mandakosi
Vuyo Oguntoki Payam Mbandaka.
Bandaka.
My full name.
6 names there.
Yeah. About 5.
5 names.
Okay? No.
Okay.
Not one of those names was given to me by my parents. I reclaimed those African names and I relinquished I relinquished the European labels my beloved mother and father gave me out of their love.
Yeah.
But they were European slave labels, which they did not understand at the time. They were European names. Yeah?
Okay.
Now, when Africans meet me as an African from the Caribbean and they hear my name, they would ask me, well, how you have an African name? Or sometimes Africans from the motherland.
Yeah.
When they hear my name, they think I was born on the African continent.
And
when I say, no, I'm from the Caribbean. They say, oh, well, how comes you have an African name? Yeah. I create a teachable moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a teachable moment.
Now, the thing is, what are the meaning of the names? Because most African names have got meanings, and you probably selected these names because the meanings.
No, I didn't select the names.
Because I met a Jamaican guy in Uganda, and his name was Bupe Akiki Karudi. Now, Karudi is a Swahili name meaning coming back. Karudi is, when you say Karudi, it means you will come back. So he came back. That's why I chose the last one, Karudi.
And interestingly enough, I have a name that means has returned.
Has returned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mandla Nkosi means power of God. That was given to me by an elder from Azania, South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa. Yeah, I was going to suggest South Africa. Yeah.
And Vuyo means has returned.
Yeah. That's a Ghanaian name.
Yeah. No, that's an Azanian name as well.
Azanian. Oh yeah. From South Africa.
Yeah. So I spoke to that elder and I explained to him that I wanted to reclaim my African names. I wanted to reclaim my African names because I'd been through a journey. That same experience I had with my grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went back to that.
to that experience.
Yes. Remember I said to you it had a profound impact
on you. Yeah.
Yeah, it never felt right. And as I grew up, as I got older, and I began to look into slavery, I used to ask my church minister and my school chaplain about slavery, and why don't we talk about slavery?
Yeah, exactly, because they rarely talk about it.
They don't talk about this.
The problem.
Growing up in Jamaica now, I started to get really frustrated. Because I'm asking questions and I can't get answers. But as I got older, I began to do my own research, and especially when I came to this country. The culture shock I experienced here.
Over here.
When I started living in close proximity with Europeans, with white British people, and experienced the racism that, was so evident here. That was like a drive to, in even greater earnest, to study and understand the history and understand the dynamics, the relationship dynamics between us and Europeans. Then I came to understand from studying our history what these names, these European slave labels meant.
Of course.
The surname meant that you were the property of the slave master, the so-called slave master.
Of course,
So you're not human now, you are a property.
You're given his name, so even if you run away, the name is there. You're his property. He'll bring you back.
Property. Remember now, my great-great-great-grandfather was sold. How do you sell a human being?
And I understand.
So now I'm putting this thing together now. I'm putting this thing together. The surname means you are the property of the slave master. But hold on. The slavery was supposed to have ended
years ago.
100 and how many years ago? So are we still symbolically the property of the slave master?
Because of
I began to feel uncomfortable now.
Because of the names they left behind.
Then now, the so-called Christian names, you would call it now Christian names. All right? And these Christian names, all these Christian names are European names.
Of course.
African names are not Christian names. All these Christian names are European names.
Some of them are not there in the Bible.
But let me land on this particular point. The Christian names were the names that we were given to replenish our souls. The Christian names actually meant you are a benighted barbarian. By nature, you are a benighted barbarian, saved by Christian grace. And the symbol of that salvation is the European name. This is why in Africa, when the colonizers began to impose themselves, remember for hundreds of years during slavery, the African was taken out of Africa. When that system became redundant, when Africans were burning up plantations in the Caribbean and on the American continent and rendered slavery no longer profitable, what they did was they came to Africa, and rather than taking the African from the land, they took the land from the African. That's colonialism. That's colonization.
Okay.
Are you with me?
I'm with you.
All right. And then they began to, and what we must understand is colonialism it sounds like a nicer word than slavery. It doesn't seem to evoke the same horrors as colonialism.
It's just
almost sound like something good. Something that we should desire.
Someone, I think, in Nkrumah came up with new colonialism.
Neo-colonialism, that's a new form of colonialism. But understand that colonialism is national enslavement. See, slavery, what they call slavery, is where the individual owns the individual. It's a private enterprise where the individual buys and owns the individual. But colonialism is where a nation comes, takes over the land of a people, and therefore claims ownership of everything thereon. The land and everything thereon and therein.
Including the people.
Including the people. So the whole nation now becomes a property. Everything on the land becomes the property of the colonizing nation. It's national enslavement. Are you see?
I'm with you. I think what I'm getting from that, obviously, is that if it's done right in front of us, in a sense that we can't read between the lines, it's like what you were talking about 2 weeks ago, in a sense that they're practically holding a gun at the leader's head. You either do this, or we will do this.
Absolutely.
So the entire thing is, we are raising our hands, thinking it's the leaders who have a problem, but the structure is very different, because they determine what goes on, regardless of what, you know.
You see, when the Europeans came into Africa during slavery, they came with guns and bombs and cannons. Weapons that Africans had never seen before.
Yeah.
Because we had never evolved the technology of creating those kinds of weapons of mass destruction, because our minds were just not orientated towards mass human destruction.
No.
We just, as Africans, just never thought that way.
No.
Yeah, we had advanced many civilizations.
Yeah.
Through
the peace that we had, in other
history.
words, the peace we had, most of that, these were new things which it was a kind of a spray as far as they're concerned. Leadership is one major thing, and with better leadership there comes maybe better funding, better ways in which you can raise money to go into most of these projects. From what I discovered over the years is that we actually have the money. The money is there, but it's going in the wrong directions with the corruption and so on. Some of the key things that need to be taught have to be the kind of things that we're talking about. Because
we have to be very careful when we talk about corruption in Africa. You see? Because the European world would have us believe that corruption was created, was invented in Africa by Africans. Right?
They went through it.
Nothing
themselves.
could be further than the truth.
Yeah.
What's more corrupt than a system of slavery?
Okay.
Slavery was corruption. Colonialism was corruption.
Yeah.
Neocolonialism is corruption.
Yeah, it is.
Globalization is corruption.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And the so-called corruption on the African continent is where you have these leaders and where you have these neocolonial regimes that are backed by and protected by their Western masters who pay them well to run these economic slave states in the interest of their former colonial masters. In order to do that, you have to be corrupt.
Okay.
The leaders who were not corrupt, the Nkrumahs, the Secretores, the Modibo Keitas, the Patrice Lumumbas, as I said last week, were either assassinated or exiled or toppled in some way, shape, or form. Those who refuse to collude, those who are progressive, and those who are diligent enough to say, this is African land, the resources thereof must be used to develop the lives and the civilization of the people of this land. Yes? Not our enslavers, not our colonizers. Those are the ones that were removed. Those who were not corrupt. As you were speaking earlier on, my mind went to Thomas Sankara.
Yeah, Thomas Sankara, yeah. Burkina Faso, yeah.
Great man.
Yeah.
Many African people never heard the name Thomas Sankara.
He came in and he left too early anyway. That's one of the reasons why.
And how did he leave? He was assassinated.
Of course, yeah.
Led by Blaise Compaoré, who then became president of Burkina Faso. Yes?
Yeah.
Backed by the French. It was a French assassination. Our sister Arikana Chiomborikwa,
okay,
the recently dismissed or sacked.
Oh yeah, the lady, yeah. At the UN,
AU ambassador, who was recently sacked from her job for speaking out powerfully in the interest of Africa and its people. Right? She was the ambassador to the U.S. Representing the African Union, and she has made it clear, something that we've known for a long time.
Of course, yeah.
That many African leaders in so-called Francophone Africa who were assassinated under the orders and the machination of the French government of the day.
Yeah, I think her case is such that when some of these things come out the way they did, and you don't bring them out in the form of a book, or you bring them out the way that, because what Africa is seeing is that we don't really have that much big evidence as far as that is concerned. We don't have it, because fine, we can understand that the way it was done, but the fact is always going to be, no, there's some doubts. That is why that happened. I want your opinion on the Ghanaian president, Nana Akufo, who recently welcomed in over 200 African Americans and some people from, who got Ghanaian citizenship, because I was watching a program when they were sworn in to become Ghanaian citizens, and one of the things that he mentioned, he said, look, you've come here, you're going to see a very different, from some of you are coming from very developed countries, United States, Britain, and there's a lot that you're going to see, which we are going to go through what we have been going through, and these things may be different from what you're seeing every day, but bear with us and do this and that. I mean, the speech was so good that he gave to welcome these people back to Africa. I just need an opinion. Should other African countries, Nigeria, Senegal, Gambia, and so on, or even Uganda, start welcoming the African Americans who are, or even Ghanaians and, Jamaicans and other people from the West Indies? Should this be a regular occurrence in Africa?
Well, we must remember, that we've been through a historical phase where that was becoming the norm on the African continent. Certainly in Ghana, under the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
Many diasporan Africans were going back to Ghana from the Caribbean, from America. Tanzania under Mwalimu Julius Nyerere also opened up its doors for Africans in the diaspora, many Africans in the diaspora, including the great Walter Rodney.
Walter Rodney,
actually lived in Tanzania with his family for a number of years. Taught at the University of Dar es Salaam. And so on. Guinea under Secretary.
Under Secretary, remember that.
Kwame Ture from the Caribbean, Trinidad in the Caribbean, actually lived in Guinea for many, many years.
He was married to Miriam Makeba.
For a period of time.
For a period of time,
And Miriam Makeba lived in Ghana for a while, lived in Guinea for a period of time. So this is not something that started with Akufo-Addo. This is something that Africans have been pushing for many, many years. The African Union has now officially recognized the 6th region, which is the diaspora. We have 5 regions on the African continent: East, West, North, South, Central. And a few years ago, the African Union officially recognized the African diaspora as the 6th union. That's one of the reasons why we in the diaspora need to be organized politically and economically and socially, so that we can engage. One of the reasons is that we can engage constructively with the African Union. That doesn't mean that we are going to necessarily agree with everything that the African Union says or does. I think we have a lot of issues with the, we should find that we have a lot of issues with the African Union and its present configuration. But it's important that we recognize that this is something that Africans on the African continent, as well as in the diaspora, have been pushing for. And many Africans have gone from the diaspora have gone to live in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
In the last decade or so.
Yeah.
So it's not just Ghana.
Ghana, yeah.
And it's not original to Akufo-Addo.
The problem, that has happened here is that I was reading The Guardian, and I think somebody else, one of the professors, was also saying that, look, if we're opening up Ghana, this was a Ghanaian professor, I can't remember the name, but he was saying, look, if we're opening up Ghana, there's some complaints, other non-Ghanaian, other non-black people, for example, Europeans who have lived here, or several Americans, white Americans, and some white British people have been denied citizenship in Ghana. The Gambia allowed so many of them to go and live there. Now, if Ghana is opening up, and other African countries are opening up for African Americans, the world should be opening up, for example, to even non-Africans, because the world has become a global village. The Gambia, there's a big debate over...
By whose definition has the world become a global village? Who's defining the global village? and in whose interest is the global village?
The Gambia, I'll give you an example.
What's Africa's role in this global village? You see, we must understand. We must understand that there is a golden rule of global geopolitics.
Okay.
Which is whoever controls Africa rules the world. Whoever controls Africa rules the world.
Yeah, because of the resources there.
Because of its powerful natural and human resources. Yeah. Africa has tremendous natural and human resources, and the potential also for its market potential.
That's why the Chinese are coming in.
Absolutely. Because the Chinese have an imperialistic vision, like Europe, like America. Yes? America is now the #1 economic power in the world. America controls Africa. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. Prior to America, it was Britain. Britain had the lion's share
of Africa,
of colonial territory on the African continent. Britain ruled the world when Britain controlled Africa. China now has a vision, an imperialist vision, to surpass America as the #1 economic power in the world. And it's right on America's tail.
It will.
Commentators, political commentators, and economic experts are saying it won't be long now. But China cannot rule the world unless China controls Africa. So China is in Africa now, making inroads. And many of us as Africans are jumping up and saying, we've got a friend. Especially as we've been through so much with the Europeans. We're fed up with the Europeans. So we're looking for a powerful friend. But we don't understand that we are our own liberators. Imagine if Africans controlled Africa.
That would be that's a very big.
If Africa controlled Africa,
that would be very difficult.
Who would rule the world?
Africa would.
Don't you think China knows that?
Of course.
Don't you think Europe knows that? Don't you think Russia knows that?
They do.
Don't you think America knows that? Is it in their interest? Is it in China's interest that Africans should muster the power to take control of our own land, our own resources, our own labor? If Africa was to labor in Africa's interest and begin to invest in developing African civilization, African humanity, at the expense of the historical and the traditional exploiters of Africa, where would that leave Europe? Where would that leave America? Where would that leave China?
They're very good questions. Very good questions that really need to be there.
The eminent and erudite scholar and historian, Baba John Henry Clark, from the late John Henry Clark, advises us on this. There's a quotation from him. Yes. We don't have any friends. Africans, he says.
We don't have any.
We don't have any friends in this world. If you're looking for a friend, these are his words.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a friend, look in the mirror. And we need to take heed of those words. We have no friends. No friends in this world.
Look in the mirror.
There's a saying in politics, there are no friends. I don't know if I've got the wording absolutely correct, but there are no friends. There's only common interests.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You don't have friends in politics. You have common interests.
Common interests.
Yeah, right.
So what common interest do we have with China?
Brother Mbandaka, we sort of run out of time. I really would love so much to ask so much more. There's so much more to learn from, from the wise knowledge that you have. And I do hope that my viewers have really learned quite a lot as far as this is concerned. I just want to say to everybody watching us that thank you very, very much. And thank you very much for coming.
I always close with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey. Unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Rumbitso kuna mwari Africa. To the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai mwari.
Thank you very much for that. And I hope we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you, and may God bless you.